Thursday Lunch and Learn webinar. My name is Michelle Rich, and I am the Associate Director of Program Development here at Xavier Health, and I'm so happy to have you all join us. The goal of our Lunch and Learn series is to advance your awareness of the driving forces you manage every day so you can lead with wisdom that would otherwise take a career to gain. So what does that really mean? We bring topics to you that you normally don't think about and can increase your awareness of things that impact your organization and that might influence you every day in your work. Xavier University has the mission of making a difference by preparing students to be a part of the outside world where you are. So in other words, Xavier wants to prepare the students to be you and join your organization. Xavier Health takes this a step further by connecting academia, FDA, and industry through various programs. So our mission is inspiring collaboration among these groups, leading innovation by breaking down barriers, opening minds, and making a difference, ultimately, hopefully, by improving lives in global health. I'd like to point out to some of you who may not have joined us before that the Lunch and Learn series is just one of the programs that we lead. We are engaged with over 150 industry professionals and FDA officials in various working teams and committees and boards through many of the different conferences, events, initiatives, and professional development opportunities that you see listed here. For example, aside from our Lunch and Learns, on February 1st, we'll host a half day with FDA, which will be a live webinar covering how the FDA is changing and focusing on what you need to know to be more effective. And then on March 13th, we will offer a data integrity masterclass led by John Avelinet, who is a world-renowned FDA trainer. And then just after that, on March 13th through the 16th, FDA Xavier co-sponsor the annual Pharma conference, and we'll be focusing on quality and regulatory issues and supply chain over the total product life cycle, including all the way to the last mile. May 1st through 4th, we host a globally renowned FDA Xavier MedCon conference that focuses on quality and regulatory issues in manufacturing and supply chain. So during these events, we'll also provide updates on some of the initiatives that you see in the center of this slide. For example, the supply by design, last mile, and the AI initiative. And while our focus is on pharmaceuticals and device and combination products, we often bring all of these industries together through work such as the AI initiative that we're going to be talking a lot about today. So before we begin, I'd like to say that today's webinar is being recorded. The recording and the slides are going to be available to you on our website soon after the webinar ends. And we will end with a Q&A session today, so please send your questions to me through the webinar as you think of them. Don't wait till the very end, and that way we can queue them up and have them ready to go. You can just do that by using your question tab in your GoToWebinar panel to send your questions to me. And just so you know, they'll come directly to me, and so they will not distract our speakers. So with that, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. We are very fortunate to be able to have and welcome a panel so rich with experience and expertise. So I'd like to thank them all for joining us. And we'll start by introducing Charlene Bernard, who is Senior Vice President of Quality at Shire, and who is also the team leader for the CPQA team, otherwise known as the Continuous Product Quality Assurance team. She co-leads this team with David Lanza of Lockman Consulting. Matt McKean is a Fellow of Regulatory Science at Boston Scientific, and he is the team administrator for the CLS, or Continuously Learning Systems team. And Marla Phillips is the Director of Xavier Health, formerly Head of Quality for Merck, North Carolina facility. And Marla leads and facilitates the overall AI initiatives here at Xavier Health. Mohammed Wahab is Senior Manager of Informatics and Analytics at Abbott, and he co-leads the CLA team with Berkman Sehiner of the FDA. So I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you so much for joining us. Okay, thank you. So we'd like to start off with and talk today about the future of quality applications. And so we'll get right into our questions. And the first question is how can artificial intelligence become the pathway to the future of quality operations across pharma and device? So Marla, can you start off by giving us an overview of the Xavier AI initiative?
Sure, thanks, Michelle. So the Xavier Artificial Intelligence Initiative was launched this year in August of 2017. And the goal that we have for this initiative is to look for ways that we can generate meaningful output. And it's, again, as you mentioned earlier, it's across pharma and device industries and along with FDA. And do this in a way that will foster the use of artificial intelligence so that we can advance our predictive capabilities. And we want to do that in areas such as product quality, regulatory, supply chain, and diagnostics. And so that's really key. If you look at this slide, there's the today version and the AI realized version. So today we're looking at a lot of information, whether it's documents, data, audits, whatever it is, it's something has already happened. So it's after the fact. With artificial intelligence, what we could realize is a predictive opportunity in a predictive world, moving from reactive and proactive to actually being able to predict when something could possibly fail. Today's model, the information that we receive and we review is periodic. I mean, you're not looking at it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as a human. And so we look at metrics or we look at reports, but it's periodic. On the AI realized side, this would be continuous. The algorithms could be continuously scanning the information and the data that you've identified to be relevant, whether it's in a GMP system or non-GMP system, and it's creating correlations that we even wouldn't be able to do as a human being. So not only are we not scanning it continuously, but then to identify those correlations is beyond human capability when you're looking at that magnitude. The other thing is, in today's world, it's a statistical sample. So when you do an audit or you're looking at metrics, any kind of information, you can only look at a portion of all the total available information that's out there. On the AI realized side, the algorithms look at the totality. So it's predictive, continuous, and in totality. And so our goal is to bring that into the quality, regulatory, and supply chain operations so that we can advance the future of these two industries. So what was neat is at the AI Summit that we had in August, we had FDA's Czabaniuk and Cisco Vicenty on the stage at the very end because we wanted them to kind of boil down what they heard for the past 2 days and what they felt AI could mean for this industry, for FDA and the professionals in pharma and device. And Art actually said on stage, you know, this is it. This is the future of quality. I mean, what more could you ask for if you think about that last slide? Continuous, predictive, totality. I mean, that would be fantastic. Cisco added to that AI has the potential to fill in the gaps that we can't get to in our current approach and with our current paradigm. There's no human bias involved in this. So, just a great summary of what we experienced in August. So when we were together at the summit, we formed 2 teams, and that's why we're here today. The 2 teams are addressing the subjects of continuous product quality assurance, and then how do you evaluate a system that continuously learns? So Charlene and Dave are the leaders of the CPQA team. Mark Zong from PricewaterhouseCoopers is the team administrator. And then from the core team that we have for the overall initiative, we have a mentor, Tony Barnes, and an AI expert, Matt Schmucky, who are supporting their efforts. On the continuously learning systems team, that's hard to say, Berkman Sahiner from PA and Mohammed, who's on the phone with us from Abbott, are co-leading that, and Mac McKean on the phone is the team administrator. So the 3 of them are leading that team's efforts. And then supporting them is Walt Mulliken and Kumar Madurai from the core team. So the infrastructure is fantastic, and the teams are often and looking into those 2 topics. I just want to point out here that they are looking across the total product lifecycle. Both teams are looking across, pre-production, production, and post-production. They're looking across industries. They want to pull in all available information and what's already known and build from that. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Charlene to comment on your question of the future of quality operations.
Thanks, Marla. First, I want to make sure I thank and recognize the participants on the team, as well as my leadership partners, Mark Zong and Dave Lanza, who have helped to create the materials today. So with regard to the future, we truly believe that there is power in our data if we can effectively get at it, connect it, and leverage it across both various internal and external sources. So we believe that our industry will use the power of AI to provide robust information to predict outcomes, make informed decisions, and manage risk, all as Marla said, in a predictive, anticipatory way.
Okay, great. So Charlene, thank you for sharing with with us. And Mohammed, what is the perspective of the CLA team in the future of quality operations?
Yeah, I think we right, and I think we do believe that regulations should enable artificial intelligence at organizations, but I think the adoption of AI will be a journey, an evolution versus a revolution. We can start with transitioning from the current approach of logged, validated algorithms, right, which we do today, versus moving towards more supervised systems, and then eventually moving towards a continuous learning systems or more automated systems. I almost feel like when we as parents teach our kids how to ride a bike. Initially once they're trained, we let them go, but we're sort of a little anxious and but supervise them, and once we gain the confidence, we let them go. And I think this journey would probably be something like that.
That's great. So it is a journey, and with every journey, there probably are some challenges that we face. So my next question is what challenges need to be overcome in order to enable industry the adoption of artificial intelligence? So Mohammed, would you like to speak to that first?
Yeah, sure. I would like to actually give this interesting anecdote about a conversation between Demis Hassabis. He is one of the co-founders of a company called DeepMind. It's a London-based artificial intelligence lab, and Elon Musk. I think most of you know him. He is the CEO of Tesla. So Demis was visiting Tesla, and he and Elon were sitting in a canteen having a conversation. And Elon made a comment that SpaceX, his famous program is SpaceX, is the most important project on the planet because it's going to achieve interplanetary colonization, on Mars or something like that. And Hassabis replied that no, in fact, he is working on the most important project in the world, developing artificial superintelligence. So the conversation is becoming a little interesting. So Musk counters him by saying, that is the reason why we need to colonize Mars, because if AI goes rogue and turns on humanity, then Mars would be our bolt hole mechanism. And Hassabis finally replies to him that AI would simply follow humans to the Mars, right? So I think it's kind of funny, but I think if you look at the Silicon Valley and the tech industry, their perspective on AI is a little diverse. You have on one side people like Bill Gates and Steve Hawkins who are open to AI, but they want to take a very conservative approach, versus the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. They are much more open-minded and want the full throttle, and Elon is probably sitting somewhere in between. So I think it's going to be a journey, as I said before. So the approach that the CLS team is taking to achieve this is, we are probably sitting in the middle, right? Supervision and eventually to autonomy. And the way to achieve that would probably be the way we do today, right? I mean, when we make systems today, we look at the risk, patient risk. What is the level of risk? So we have to incorporate that as we build AI and these algorithms. Another way to look at this would be the categories in the med devices, and are there any different flavors in the pharma industry that is a little bit different versus non-regulated systems, right? I mean, there are products or systems which are healthcare products but not necessarily regulated because they don't pose the same risk to the patient as the regulated devices. So perhaps we can a little bit be more open in those type of applications and learn as we go. The other piece that I think is a challenge is technology is fast changing, right? I mean, obviously the good news is we are at a point where AI seems much more achievable versus 10 years ago. But I think the technology is changing fast. The platforms are changing, the softwares are changing. It has become much more easier in these days to connect the software, to IoTs. I mean, think about you're connecting your Pi and a kid programming using JavaScript to automate hardware. It's that easy, right? So I think we need to continuously look at how this market is evolving and continuously adapt. So it will be an interesting journey.
That's great, thank you. So Charlene, what is the perspective, or what types of challenges has the CPQA team identified?
Well, I guess our first challenge is, so what? Why are we talking about this? And while we have a number of people certainly on the call who are very excited about the possibilities and the potential, I think we need to help be change agents in our industry to help everyone envision what the possibilities are. How can we effectively use AI to move toward that future state? So there's a potential to work in a very, very different way. And so I think telling the story, understanding people's concerns and risks that are perceived, and integrating that is going to be critically important. So if you can move to the next slide, we have a few more that we've captured. So, this slide captures a few more of the challenges that we have in front of us. As with any topic, especially new concepts, we need education and to develop a common foundation or vernacular so that we can build something new and that we can bring many people along with us. Excuse me. And that is something that we are working on in in our deliverables, so we'll get to that slide in the future. But thinking about our data, it is so valuable to us. And as such, we really need to protect it. Think about cybersecurity and the risks that we have of corruption or attack. But on the other hand, we can't be stingy with it, because it is really the combination of that data with other data by which the power is really magnified. So we can't have silos, but we need to balance the protection of that data with sharing that data. The next two topics, structure and cleanliness of the data, are things that we can do regardless of our AI journey and path. So when you think about structure, an example I think of is, batch number. So something that's called batch number in one system, it should be the same and have the same structure as something that has a batch number in another system. And that data element, if you will, of batch number, is what really enables linkages of multiple sets of data in both of those systems and allows that information to be joined and hopefully exploited to our advantage. Cleaning the data, think about garbage in, garbage out. We've always heard that. And quite honestly, I'm always amazed at the time necessary, not just to map data, but to clean data when we're integrating or moving to a new system or combining into a new system. So again, those are just basic tenets of good data management, but those are obviously fundamental to utilizing our data more effectively. And then we move on to connecting our data, and I say carefully because we know that there are risks in connecting data. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is the virus that the Petya virus that I think Merck had some very difficult times with. And while I'm not an expert, I understand that was probably introduced into Merck by some joining of data from an outside source. So connecting that data has to be done in a very careful and orderly way. And then analyzing the data that we are able to collect, and the decisions or the output from that connection or leveraging of data. We can't lose sight of using human common sense. I always go back to something that I learned from one of my statistics professors, who said you just can't correlation does not necessarily mean causation. So just because there is some connection, correlation, we have to be careful regarding the conclusions that are drawn from that. And then visualization and communication of data, that can be a challenge as the types and amount of data continue to increase and analysis techniques become more complex. And then lastly, in this world of artificial intelligence, we need data scientists, and we need that skill throughout our operations. It can't just be an IT skill. That is really the foundation of a learning organization, and that skill set is going to be critical for the future.
Great, and so this is Marla. So I guess, when we're looking at challenges for the overall initiative, there's a lot to think about, and at least from what Charlene and Mohammed have described, I hope that everyone on the line, if you're just learning about AI, have moved from, okay, we're talking about futuristic robots to, okay, this is actually a tool that we can use within our systems, our walls at our pharma or device companies. But you might be thinking, okay, that sounds great, but I don't have the time, the money, and the resources to do any of this. And so I'd like to just point out that at least through this initiative, the solutions that are being developed are for free and open access. And we do it in a way that companies can crawl, then walk, then run. So, and I'll show you that in just a second. The other thing is, once you do start implementing this, even the crawl stage where you haven't implemented AI, but you're preparing for it, you can start shifting resources from managing failures to increasing data robustness. So it's not adding resources to your current systems, it's shifting where you're focusing your work based on the outcomes, which are very positive. At the end, though, if you are going to go all out and implement AI, money is needed at the end of the day. So it can either be internal, so you have the capability internally, or through outside services. So you can implement the solutions without AI as best as you can in order to reduce failures. And from that way, based on the ROI, you can cover the expenses, but your company might be so small that you don't have that luxury. I mean, you have to have the money in hand. You can't implement it first and then reap the benefits of the ROI. So there is a crawl, walk, and run mechanism that allows you to implement it in a way that's right for your company and at the right timing. So when I say crawl, walk, run, if you look at the work that these two teams are doing, some of the outputs that they've described is, they're going to be harmonizing definitions across systems. As you heard Charlene talk about, cleaning up the management of data, improving electronic searchability of data and access to the data. All of those things, even if you didn't implement AI, would be beneficial to you today. So that would be certainly in the crawl stage. Now, through the work that's being done, if we can identify those interrelationships or the correlations that Charlene was just mentioning across data systems, even without having AI, if the team that coming out of this initiative, if they generate this map for you to take to your company, you can look at those systems as humans and pull the information in the data and start looking at trends that maybe you didn't realize existed. Maybe the data is being looked at in silos today, or there's some systems you didn't think to look at because maybe they aren't GMP, but yet they impact your GMP systems and the decisions you're making. So again, you could take the information and the output and crawl with it. And then certainly if we can identify cause and effect relationships between data and the failures so that we can become predictive, that's powerful to understand even without AI. If you can identify all of the relevant data and information needed for AI programming, then if you're ready to start walking and then eventually running, you can give that to your data scientists if you happen to have them, or you can hire a consultant or get something off the shelf. And there's also open sourcing AI information out there for everyone to access beyond what we're doing at Xavier. So you can take that information and start working with it in AI once you're ready. And then the last part, outlining the steps needed for data governance, procedural changes, and human training. Again, completely needed even if you're not talking about AI. So all of these aspects that are coming out of this work, you can implement in a way that's right for you and your organization based on the timing and the resources that you have.
That's great. That's a lot of really great information. And just a reminder to everyone who's listening in, if some of what has just been discussed is causing the questions in your mind, please remember to send those to me and I will ask those at the end. So what are the expected deliverables from the two Xavier AI teams? And Charlene, let's start.
Okay. So our team has 3 specific deliverables. The first one I'll call a system map. And what we're trying to do with that system map is to demonstrate the connectivity and potential causal relationships between both internal systems, such as GXP systems, non-GXP systems, as well as think systems that might be external to our to an organization, weather data, for example, or something like that, and to connect those elements to a complaint system. So the reason we took a complaint system as something tangible to think about, when you have a customer complaint or you have some type of recall, you have information coming in from the field. You typically will do some type of investigation. A very significant complaint may go into many, many different systems internally. We probably don't think a lot about perhaps external information to the company. But the idea is, if you take a complaint and work backwards, why not think about going the reverse direction? So what are all the systems that have some type of bearing or influence that might contribute toward that customer complaint? So we're kind of taking a reverse look to find out like root cause, but then through that effort, all of those systems that we can identify that might have some type of causal relationship on a customer complaint, if we could connect those systems in some way and be able to detect signals before some issue happened, we could potentially, prevent customer complaints, we could prevent recalls, et cetera. So our first deliverable is that system map between these various systems, showing that interconnectivity to them and ultimately to something such as a complaint system. The second deliverable is something we're calling a data model, and really that is looking at the various elements, data elements within each of those systems that we identified in the system map, and show how those data elements might connect across those systems. I do have a slide in a moment that I'll show that is just a high-level view of that, but before I go there, the third output is a set of definitions of AI-relevant terms, again, to try to help standardize our understanding and enable us to use common language. So if you can go to the next slide, I just want to point out I don't want to get into detail on this slide, but when I talked about one of our deliverables being a system map demonstrating interconnectivity, the blue rectangles on this particular slide show samples of a GXP system that might be connected. So you see the complaint system, the CAPA system, an execution system, LIMS, ERP, et cetera. And then the last one, or the E on the catastrophic event, think about things that happen around the world, right? The weather events in Japan and how that potentially impacted products that came out of there, or any place you have a flooding or earthquakes, et cetera. And so those kind of external events that we might not always think about are an excellent, I guess, addition to any type of system map. So the gray boxes in between the blue boxes, that illustrates the data element that serves to connect those various systems. And you don't need more than one shared data element across two systems to be able to join that data. So again, if you can connect ERP, external events, LIMS, et cetera, can we identify potential problems before they occur? And that is certainly our hope. I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlene. So Mac, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. What are some of the expected deliverables from the CLS team?
Okay, thanks, Michelle. What I've got here is our visual. We're and all of the conversation leading up to this is part of what we're using as inputs as we look into the continuous learning systems and algorithms. So what we found is we've got about 30 plus folks in our team, and it's a nice mix of about half pharmaceutical industry experts and the other half med device related. And as Mohammed had mentioned earlier, we're really putting into practice two work streams. If you look at the architecture around this and the input that FDA is looking for is, how do we regulate continuous learning systems and algorithms, right? So one work stream is that decision assistance system, where there's an algorithm and human input to help train it, right? And then you ultimately move towards an autonomous system where it's been trained and it's validated, and some of the previous examples is functioning on its own. So it seems like every day there's a new example. Yesterday there was a chat bot that's come out that gives terminal patients a robot to talk to when they have to deliver the news. And some patients actually found that more comfortable than dealing with the physician. But there's no end to the examples, and we're picking some of those examples. We got some here, and again, as Mohammed had said, we're going to look at how to validate those systems, and the others have talked about, you know, the structured, unstructured data. You have clean data. What are the rules around that data? How do you put ranges around it? You can't just open it wide open because you'd be boiling the ocean. So you have to be quite specific in terms of how you're going to validate these various applications. And as you move into sort of the use and commercialization of that and turn this system loose, how do you build confidence to the users? How are they going to accept it? How do you know that your data and monitoring systems are continually going to make sure that this is an appropriate and accurate tool? So we've got a whole flight of deliverables down there that we're working on. Next slide. So quickly, not wildly different. We've got the two teams, and I think all of those in the industry can appreciate the uniqueness of pharma versus medical device and the various applications and the therapies that we deliver. So we're going to take various steps to go about that. The pharma team we've got this, what I call top 10 list from Berkman, from FDA, to run their examples through to find fit and help them define solutions and outcomes. Again, being mindful of the rules of engagement and training these systems, and as Charlene had said, this GXP framework makes a lot of sense, right? Whether it's GMP, GLP, GDP, GCP, sorry for the acronym overload there, but we can adapt this. It's all about the G and the P, good practice, and then you fill in the blank. So that's really what the pharma and device team are working towards. Next slide. And we have the benefit on the medical device team of Pat Baird and Rohit Nayak are quite involved in other initiatives around AI and machine learning, such as AdvaMed and AMI and international standards. So like the quality team, we want to understand the landscape, have some definitions, and really stay true to our scope and keep this in a box, because we can't take on all of AI. We want to be meaningful and focused and going after continuous learning systems and how we might regulate those in a meaningful manner. And again, this GMP scheme seems to fit quite well with this group. And if we're to be clever and creative, we might call it GMLP, good machine learning practices. So we're going to run these through some hypotheses and again, develop solutions and recommendations as our deliverables.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mac. So this is Marla. Looking at the overall initiative, I just wanted to share with everyone where we are and how this is working. So we're already past the first gray box where the two working teams kind of reported into the core team, and the report in was kind of just not only a status update, but then also looking for help in any areas. And in some cases, you might say, you know, we really need to talk with someone in research who's an AI expert, who's working in sterile operations and, you know, has red hair or whatever it is. And, you know, perhaps that particular team doesn't have access to someone like that. So, so it's just been a great opportunity for the teams and the core team to continue progressing the initiatives for both subject areas. So we'll do the same thing in January. And then after that, we're going to start reporting out where we are and the progress. So if you're in the pharma industry, it'd be great if you could join us at the PharmaLink conference, especially if this is really interesting to you and you want to be involved and have your voice heard. The sessions at PharmaLink will be focused on more like a focus group session. So here's where we are, and let's have your input. Let's have some discussion and continue forward. Same thing in May. We'll have the medical device conference, the MedCon conference. So the presentation there will be to share how far the teams have come and gain your input, and so you can have your voice heard and share your experiences, which would be fantastic to add to the direction the teams are taking. And then each year, in August, we will have the AI Summit, and that's where, for this coming year, we'll present the final output of the teams. Perhaps one or both teams will have a phase 2 that's needed, or maybe they'll want to pilot something, or maybe we'll be ready to take on another topic, which the core team has been talking about as well. So if you're interested in getting involved, there's certainly multiple ways that you can do that, and we look forward to having you engaged with us.
That is great. Thank you so much. And we are running short on time. And I think you answered the question that we had was, is it too late to get involved? It certainly is not too late to get involved. Marla mentioned all of the different ways that you could. So that is great. But I'd also like to remind you all, if you'd like to join us and continue the discussion, we do have a LinkedIn group. You just search for the Xavier Artificial Intelligence group on LinkedIn, or if you're looking for a link, it will be available on the Lunch and Learn website. So for our speakers today, thank you so much for taking the time to share everything with us. And for those listening in, thank you so much for being with us, and we hope you join us on January 18th for our next Third Thursday Lunch and Learn. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.